There's a simple country smile on the face of a new city girl. She says the roof it leaks and the rent is high. There's no better place in the world. It's a long way down, back to the bottom.
This week, I'm joined by Russ Nordmeyer, aka Russ Rich, award-winning San Francisco DJ, licensed marriage and family therapist, and all-around force of transformation. From headlining Folsom Street Fair, Magnitude, and Pride festivals across the country to helping people heal through his work in addiction and recovery, Russ's journey is anything but ordinary. In this conversation, we go beneath the surface to talk about the parallels between music and therapy, what resilience looks like on the dance floor and in recovery, and how transformation can come from unexpected places. Honest talk, real change. You don't want to miss this one. Russ. Yes. I have
Hi,
Russ
Gina.
Nordmeyer here with me. I am just so excited. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm just so excited. Yeah, it's just, I'm a little bit speechless right now.
Well, I'm equally excited. When you reached out and told me, what you're doing, like I thought this is going to be great. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like it's been forever since I've actually seen you, but not really, because I think we've have one of those relationships where you just sort of either bump into each other or you pick up the phone or you do an IM and it's like
Yep.
yesterday,
Yeah.
which it brings me to ask you, like, do you remember when we first met?
Well, it had to be at the hair salon, wasn't it?
It was at the hair salon.
Yeah. Which was, sort of a middle range of my many careers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the first time we met.
We did. I know. I remember, relocating and needing, just a kick butt stylist. And I was, you were referred, and then it was just, hair love at first sight. I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, and we also clicked right away. Like, I just remember, the thing that I loved about seeing you and what I really loved about doing hair was actually the relationships that I had with the clients that I had. That's what I was passionate about so much, because I love that connection.
Yeah. No, we always had a lot of fun. It was good old days.
Good days. Yep.
Of San Francisco. Yeah.
Yep.
But what's interesting and why I am so excited to have you on Beneath the Surface is because you just have such an amazing, how do I say this, sort of career progression, the career trajectory. I mean, you embody transformation at its best, in my opinion.
Thank you.
As this, everyone makes fun of HR person, but we're not going to do it. I've had a lot of that this week and I am a little tired of it. But at the end of the day, it's just, you've been not only a favorite dear friend of mine, but someone that I've been so excited to watch the things that you have done and accomplished, and the courage that you've had to actually do these things.
And
so I think, like, take us back to the beginning, wherever the beginning feels most comfortable for you.
Well, that's great. Thank you. I was thinking actually the past couple of days after you had reached out, when we talked initially, thinking about the idea of transformations. And this morning I was thinking, like, where would I start? Like what, when I think back, and actually, so I grew up in Minnesota, a small town, 700 people. And I moved to Minneapolis, basically because I was in this small town and I was trying to figure out who I was. And I knew at a very early age that I was different. And, it took a while to figure out what that meant. But I moved to Minneapolis and my first transformation was really accepting myself as a gay man. And that happened because I got into therapy. I mean, I was pretty like devastated back then. I was in this small town and trying to figure out like what does this mean? So I
Right.
found a therapist and got into therapy and started doing some like deeper work. And I think the first transformation, if I go all the way back, was really figuring out how to accept myself. And so, that was kind of a pivotal moment. It was actually interestingly tied to my hair loss too, because I started
Oh,
losing my hair when I
no.
was really young. And this was before sports figures were shaving their heads. It was not cool. There
Right.
was, people like men were really kind of like traumatized if they were losing their hair. And so part of the reason I got into therapy was I had no self-worth. My self-esteem was so low. I thought I'm going to live a life of, I'm going to be isolated. I'm going to be alone. I'll die alone. Nobody's ever going to love me. All this like ridiculous stuff that none of which turned out to be true. But I had such poor self-worth that was equally tied to like my sexual orientation and also
Right.
tied to what I was going through physically, losing my hair at age 21. I started balding when I was like 20 or 21. So as silly as that sounds now, it is one of the reasons I got into therapy. And I had this therapist who I said, I'm going to die alone. And she's like, why are you saying that? And I said, well, I'm losing I was a little dramatic. I was like,
Right.
well, I'm losing my hair and everybody knows that bald people are ugly. And she said, why do you think that? And I said, well, everybody knows that. And she said, I don't know that.
Right.
And I was like, I'm so confused right now. And she's like, no, you've learned that, but that's something that you were taught. It's not something that's true. Right. And so
Right.
I think that was the first time that I really started to realize we do have the capacity to unlearn and to question. So
Right.
that helped me get to a place of self-acceptance. And so, I think back, that was probably the first transformation.
And what's so interesting about that is we actually cover that in another discussion
Oh,
we
interesting.
have, which completely different topic, but the guest really kind of took us back to the first step, which was self-recognition,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yep.
accepting it, recognizing yourself in the moment
Yep.
and taking that and going through sort of this acceptance journey,
Yep.
which I think is just amazing. And quite frankly, you're very fortunate at that time, right? Because
Hmm. Oh,
people
yeah.
go through a lot before they even get to that point.
Yep. Yeah, and I was so grateful, and that was my introduction to therapy, to psychotherapy, and now I am a therapist.
Right.
We'll get there, but yeah, no, it was really important, and I think it's something that I share with people now. When we all carry certain beliefs about ourselves that we've learned, but that maybe don't actually serve us or help us. And we have to recognize, part of the work is just recognizing like, this is something I was taught. I don't have to continue to believe this. I
That's
can
right.
actually, it's kind of the part of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Like what are my thoughts impact my actions. And if I keep telling myself I'm not worthy and I'm no good, chances are I'm going to live a life that I'm doing things that foster more of that. But
That's
if I
right.
can question that and get back to like, well, what's actually my truth? Then we can actually make change. And that's the beauty of transformation, right? Like,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So then I moved from Minneapolis to San Francisco. In Minneapolis, I had worked as an HIV prevention outreach worker. I had done a lot of like social service stuff. I had a brief stint working for 2 years at Prince's studio, which is kind of an interesting side story
Oh, I
we can
didn't think
dive
I knew
into.
that.
No, oh
That's
yeah,
cool.
really fascinating time. But from the time I was a little kid, really about age 3 or 4, my parents bought me a record player. And I have
Nice.
been passionate about music my whole life, and but I'm not really a musician. I played drums for a while, which I loved, but I always wanted to have music as some part of my life.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I moved to San Francisco, and I started going out to clubs, and I started like really paying attention to the music And my friends would say, like, how do you know all this music? And, I was like, well, I study it. Like, I was so into it. And at a certain point, you know, I thought about DJing and I was like, well, that's crazy. Can I do that? And so, I ended up becoming, I'm a therapist now. And at the same time I was becoming a therapist, I started DJing, and both kind of took off at the same time. And I was like,
Yes.
can I be a therapist who DJs? That seems strange.
Well, I remember sitting in your, in the salon in the chair, and it was like the cutest thing. I felt like we were like two like little kids. You were like, I have these tapes. What you want to do? I've got these mixes. You want to check this out? What do you think of this and that? And it was like you had your like little briefcase of like, it was just it was awesome,
Uh,
and I was like, yes, because I too am like a huge music,
yep.
lover, et cetera.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're like, "Do you think I can do this?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes. I mean, look what you've done already. Just do it." You know?
Well, and at the core, at the root of it, what I love is that, music for me has always brought me so much joy. And,
Yes.
when I started DJing, the ability to share that with people was just so great. And so, I have this hobby. I call my DJing career a hobby because I've always kept it as a hobby while I pursued, like, other stuff. And sometimes I think when you have a hobby that is not your career, it allows you to continue to access the joy that it can bring you.
Yes.
Whereas if I relied on DJing for like my income, it would feel like a job. And instead, I have this great job that I love as a therapist, and I have this hobby that brings me so much joy. And I've always said to people, if it ever started to feel like work, I'll stop, because
Yes.
I don't want two jobs. I want something that I'm passionate about that I can do for fun. And then I want to have my career, which I'm very fortunate that my career also brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I do
Yeah.
I I do remember that, and then I do remember as you were sort of working through, experimenting with your mixes and things of that nature. Gosh, bring me to the first you had gotten a first like a call or a first opportunity, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna happen."
Yep. So, it's interesting. So I think I had just started grad school, or maybe I hadn't quite started, but I was kind of moving in that direction.
Right.
And I was cutting hair full time, and I had maybe played one gig, but that was like, it was at a little tiny bar on a Tuesday night or something. I don't really consider that, but I had been talking to people and sharing mixes, and I had this friend who was a promoter, and he was a DJ himself, and he said, "I want to book you to open this party." And at
Right.
that time, it's known as Great Northern now, but I forget what it was called back then. But it had a different name. But this huge club, and this DJ from New York was coming, DJ Escape, and he's like, "I want you to open for DJ Escape." And I
Yeah.
said, "I am not ready." And he
Yeah.
goes, "You are ready." And, I had all like, I was like, I can't do this. But, he pushed me, right? And this is a
Yes.
theme in my life of me
Right.
not feeling ready, and
That's
then
right.
other people having to say, "You're ready." And then really having to start to, for myself, to try and believe that,
Yes.
right? Because I had these doubts along the way, and regardless of the career, I always had these doubts, and it really took some work. But anyway, my friend Luke booked me, and it was a 2-hour set, and I was going to open, and it was at Mighty. It was called Club Mighty back then, Industry, and there
Okay.
were probably 700-800 people, and I played from 10 to midnight. And I pre-planned every minute of that set.
I
I knew
re
exactly
I
what I was going to do when I start the track,
yes.
when I fade in, like I knew everything.
Yes.
Um, and it went really well. And
Whatever.
so afterwards, like, people were coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I was at that event on Saturday night and your set was fantastic." And I'm like, another theme, I would be like, "Oh, it was okay." I started to like minimize
Yes.
and, kind
Right.
of brush it aside and like, "Oh, it was fine," because I had all these doubts. But the more and more people that were telling me that, and then what happened is other promoters started booking me because they were like, "Hey, we heard that this went really well. We want to book you for this event." And then it started to take off. And you may remember this, but I really started this just as a hobby. I wanted to like share
Oh,
music with my
yeah.
friends. I never really intended to pursue it in any way um, beyond that, but it started to take off in a way that I really had not anticipated. And
Yes,
then I realized like, oh my God, I love this. Like, this
I
is so
remember.
much fun. This is something that just makes me so happy. And in San Francisco, I'm kind of known for being like the DJ who plays the happy stuff. And,
Nice. Yeah,
in
yeah.
the gay club world, there's all sorts of different genres, and I play a lot of vocals. And for me, like throughout my life, music that I'm most strongly attracted to is the music that tells a story, right? I love
Yes.
singer-songwriters. And so I would start to find club music that really told a story that evoked an emotion. And I think
Yes.
that's why I connect with the audience that I do, is because people will come up to me after events and say, when you played that one particular song, when you played Fix You, or when you played Absolutely Not, or, they will call out specific moments in the night. They were like,
Right.
that, like, I have such a connection to that song. I've had people come up and say, like, I cried during your set.
Right. I
Um,
believe it.
like you took me on a journey and it made me so emotional. And like, I love that. And it
Yes.
also, there's kind of a parallel process with therapy. Like,
Yes.
in therapy, getting to help people, tap into emotions to help them move through something so that they can heal.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like there's this parallel process between like what I do as a DJ, even though it's very different, and what I do in therapy. And it's just kind of the best of both worlds.
It really is. I don't
Yeah.
know that it's well, I guess on the top on the surface, it seems very different, but I think really beneath the surface, it's very similar. And I don't know who originated this quote, but, you know, music is medicine for the soul, right?
Completely. Yep.
It
It
just
absolutely
really
is.
is
Yep.
hands down.
Yep. It's been there for me when other things haven't, and
Absolutely.
yeah. I love what you said too, Gina, because, in therapy, I'll talk with people about the difference between content versus process. And like what we're
Yes.
doing today is like, the content could be DJing, the content could be therapy. The process underneath it is what is happening emotionally. Right. And that's the process. And if we actually focus more on the process, sometimes we see things that we normally wouldn't.
That's
So,
right.
I really love that. And I use that in my therapy. I'll tell clients all the time, let's not focus so much on the content right now. What's happening underneath for you? Because it could be you're talking about your partner, it could be you're talking about your job, it could be whatever. But underneath, your process is you don't feel content, right? You don't feel content in any of these areas. So let's focus on that.
Right.
Because if we keep on the content, sometimes we miss stuff.
Well, and I think that helps organize people's thinking,
Oh,
and some of the other
oh.
work that I'm involved in, we talk a lot about like this critical thinking. I don't even know that everyone shares the same definition of what that really means, but it's like really kind of peeling back, you know, let's get into this. And I love that approach. Because I don't know, another thing we've been talking about too a lot is common sense. And do people really even know what common sense is anymore? Do people even share common sense? This is
Right.
another theme that's been coming up in some of our conversations. So that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So do we get to like know the AKA?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I
Okay.
can share that. So yes. So, I think my name will probably be on the screen, Russ Nordmeyer. So
Right.
when I started DJing that event I was telling you about, my friend Luke called me and he was like, "Hey,
Yes.
we're about to send the ad to the printer. What do you want to be billed as?" And I was like, "Oh my God." Like, and I thought, well, I can't, no one could, there can't be a DJ Russ Nordmeyer. That sounds silly.
Wait,
Um,
I
you
remember
know,
I
I,
was in your chair
yeah,
when you
we
were
had this
like, "What do you think?"
conversation.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
so here's the thing. My partner at the time, I said to him, I got to come up with a name. And my
Yep.
middle name is Richard. That's my father's name. My middle name is Richard. I do have a regret. I don't have many regrets in life, but this is one of them. I'm a huge fan of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Being from Minnesota, it was set there.
Right.
Her last name was Richards, Mary Richards. I really regret I didn't go with Richards because I could have been Russ Richards, which I think would be great. It would have been an homage to Mary. That didn't happen. My partner was like, go with Russ Rich. So I'm DJ Russ Rich. That
Yes.
turned into a whole thing because after that first party went well, then I had to
Right.
use it.
That's right.
And I've come to accept it. I've come to appreciate it. The challenge is that people never know what to call me. I get a lot of people like, "Hey, Rich," because when you have two first names, people don't know.
That's
So
right.
it's been kind of funny. I wish it was Richards, but it's too late to change. It is what it is. But I'm pretty happy with it now. It's just that it causes confusion.
Yes. No, I could see that. I could definitely see that. But I think it's great. I love it. I think
Thanks.
it's great. So, I know that you are working on some newer things.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to share some of the more recent events that you have been, working
Yeah.
on in the world of the DJ.
Yeah. Well, so I am really fortunate. Um, I am at a level where, like I said, I do this for fun. I work with a lot of different promoters. I have in the past, I mean, it's probably been like 10 years that I've been traveling a little bit. I don't travel a lot, but
Right.
I played gigs in Atlanta and Los Angeles and San Diego, and I played prides in different cities and Seattle, Vancouver. It's been really great. But I play more in San Francisco, and I have a few key events. The biggest event I play every year is the Dory Alley Street Fair closing party, which
Right.
for those folks who might not know what Dory Alley is, in San Francisco, there's Folsom Street Fair, there's Dory Alley Street Fair, there's Pride, there's a lot of like community-based events. Folsom and Dory are like leather pride events, kind of. They're basically
Right.
big parties, big street fairs. And since 2013, a promoter approached me. He did a party called Play. And he said, are you interested in playing this? It was the closing party for Dory Alley weekend. It's a huge weekend. People come from all over the world. Not quite as big as Folsom, but so I played it, and it was it was one of those nights where like everything just came together. The music was incredible, the
Nice.
energy. So since 2013, I have played the closing party for Dory Alley in different incarnations because it's changed from a few promoters. Now it's called Romp. And my friend Brian Kent and my friend Philip Grosso and my friend Simon and my friend Jonathan are the promoters of Romp. And so we do
Nice.
it every July. It's always the closing party of that big weekend. This year it was at 1015 Folsom. It was
Yes.
huge.
Yeah.
I think we do have one picture from it. It's the one with the barn, and I can probably explain
Oh,
that. Probably should
yeah.
explain that. These
Zach, can you
promoters,
help?
yeah, these promoters are so that's it. You can kind of see, I'll tell you what's happening in that photo. So
Okay.
on the stage, this is the stage at 1015 Folsom that you can see the huge lighting rig. They
Yes.
they always have a theme, and this year's theme started to be, it was going to be country western, and we thought about like Beyonce and Texas Hold'em and what we could do with that. And in fact, we did do a performance that night to Texas Hold'em. But it ended up being more of like a barnyard animal farm theme. And so they go all out. They built as you can see, there's a barn on stage. The DJ booth I'm standing in front of, it was like barrels, and there's barrels on a farm. And we had all throughout the night these different themes. So there's another one. You
Oh,
can see the
that
barn a
is
little
just
better there. And
fantastic
the
picture of
lighting,
you.
thank you. The light, I'm so happy. You can see, like, I'm just absolutely joyful. There
Yes.
would be like barnyard animals that would poke their heads up in that little thing above my head. So like there would be like pigs and chickens and things. And then we had dancing cows on the LED screens and like absolutely goofy, silly stuff. But we had about 1,000 people, between 900 and 1,000. I play for 7 hours. And
Wow.
it's house music, so it's continued. There's no breaks. I do a 7-hour set. 6 hours is good. The last hour I was really, really tired.
I could
um,
just imagine.
but anyway, it's great, and I do that every year. This year I'm also playing Magnitude, which is the Saturday night Folsom Street party. So
Okay.
I'm playing that. I'm opening that event. I'm just playing for 2 hours that night. But I think, Gina, you mentioned at one point when we were talking, you came to Pride in San Francisco, right? At Civic Center. Yeah.
Yes, I
So,
remember that.
yeah, my friend Philip and I played, we do a little tag team DJ thing where we play together and we trade off every song and kind of feed off each other. Super fun. We did Pride, I think, in Civic Center. I don't know how many thousands of people there were that day, but I mean, these are like incredible moments in my life. I feel so grateful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I know, and I when I look back, I know you had invited me to just tons of things, and, as a single working mom, a lot of this stuff takes place late at
Yes.
night, but I did manage to get to some of them, and I remember I was so proud because I got to sit, we call it against the rail, the fence right where you were on the stage, and I actually think I might have some really cool pictures, but,
Oh,
like,
wow.
that was just I've gotta now look for those. I totally forgot about that, but
Oh,
that was
wow. Nice.
so much fun. Yeah, there was a lot of people. I just
Yeah.
remember thinking, "What on earth am I doing here? Like, this is crazy." Crazy stuff. Fun, fun though.
The hours get harder and harder. I actually that party that we just showed you pictures of, that starts at 6 p.m. and goes till 1 a.m. For me, that's a
Yes.
dream. It's getting harder. I've been doing this for like 15 or 17 years now, and the parties where I go on at like midnight or sometimes even later, it's just, it was easier 15 years ago.
Yeah. No, I know, and we were trying to recall the other that was quite an event in terms of the production. I mean, the production of these, I didn't know what to expect, and so a good friend of mine and I went, and when you walk into these club, these spaces. Oh, I just love that picture. Um, you're just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, okay, I'm just gonna go there, even though I've never been there. It's like this whole Studio 54, like
Very much so. Yeah.
awesomeness, right?
Yep. Well, and
That was a ton of fun. Yeah.
I'm so glad. This is a different event, but this is at Halcyon in San Francisco, and I like this picture just because it really captures like how I feel when I'm playing. Just it brings me so much joy, and then to get to do that and have people come up after, when I run into folks out and about, and just people share the kindest things, and so it's been such a nice experience. The Dory Alley event, um, you know, that's a 7-hour event, and throughout the night there are these moments. So,
Right.
we wanted to share some video, but it most likely we won't be able to. But I was talking earlier that they had this barnyard theme, and so at 8 o'clock we were there were these flaggers who were gonna come out. And flaggers, it's this beautiful art form with these really colorful flags, and people are just incredible, with their skills. And so they had this idea, the promoters had this idea we're going to have these flaggers who are going to have yellow flags that'll look like chicken feathers. And then they're going to sort of be dressed like chickens. And
Right.
then they'll come out at 8 p.m. with their flags. And then behind on the LED screens, there's going to be, feathers floating on the screen. And what song can you play during that time? And I was like, there are no club tracks about chickens. Like, what are you asking me to do? But I started looking into it, and I was like, okay, chickens, nothing, barn, nothing. And I
Right.
typed in
Right.
birds into my music library, and of course, Billie Eilish, Birds of a Feather came up.
Yes.
So I started looking for remixes, and I couldn't find any that would fit the energy. And one of the things that I've loved doing for about the past 15 years now.
He says it's a long way down, back to the bottom.